So my name's Norm Beauchamp. We're really glad you're here for this research day. I'm going to share a little bit about my journey and my perspectives on research. I'm Dean of the College of Human Medicine. I went to undergrad in medical school at Michigan State. I grew up in a small farm not far from here, and so feel really fortunate to have the opportunity first to be here with all of you, because it wasn't, I remember sitting where you sit. And we're really proud to have the opportunity, hopefully, to have a positive impact, okay? So I'm going to share a little bit about my journey to research to help give you guys, hopefully, some perspectives, and then you'll meet with all of these amazing researchers that are back on the wall and gain some insights. So I'll start when I was a baby. I was little and I was very ill. And they said that I was not likely to survive, which is a bummer. But the good news was that by age 7, I was still here. So my mom had said, well, you must be here for a purpose. And so I decided that I was going to give back, and I wanted to make a difference because I felt fortunate that I made it through what I wasn't supposed to. And I decided I was going to do that by being a doctor. And I had read this book, and this is a picture of it. It's called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Have any of you guys read this book? It's an awesome book, and it's about this little seagull who wants to fly higher and faster. And a lot of other seagulls say you can't do it, but he just keeps trying, and he crashes, and he tries again, and then he watches other seagulls, and one day he can soar. And so when I read that book, it said to me, if I believe hard enough and I work hard enough, then maybe I could become what I hoped I could. And so that meant a lot to me, and that stuck with me. By the time I was 13, I did my best every day. I was able to attain good grades consistent with my goal. I was on my way. I was really happy about that. By the time I was 17, I'd lost my way a bit. I'd been expelled twice, which wasn't really a good way to attain my goal. And I was told by my teacher, who said that if I went to college at that time, I'd not be successful. And they were right. If I didn't change my ways, I wouldn't be successful. I'd forgotten my commitment to help those in need, and it had become about me. I was more worried would I be cool than would I work hard and be smart. And then I was reminded by my mom. She worked in the city, and she was a mental health therapist to help people that struggled, that if you want to lift yourself up, you have to lift up somebody else. And so it really helped me focus back on purpose, on planet, and that I had to work hard so that I could do good, and it made a big difference for me. And so I got back on my path, studied hard, was fortunate to go to college, medical school. Then I went off to Johns Hopkins, and I got to do research with Ben Carson, who's an amazing physician from Detroit, who also had a story where he got lost and found his way. And I got to work with Ben when we did research that helped us separate these Siamese twins. And this is a picture of these two babies who were attached at the head. And one of the challenges for them is that was their life, and that was going to be their life, and no one had ever separated Siamese twins attached at the head before. So we were able, using some of the research techniques we developed, to figure out how could you separate their brains and allow them to live. And so there are the boys now, many years later, separated and having a life. So that's one thing that research can look like and do. I was really bothered by, in Africa, women die from complications of pregnancy and childbirth, about 1 in 22. And one of the challenges there is twins is a difficulty in delivery. That's one. Another is you can have something called a low-lying placenta. And I thought we could do something different. And so I started a global health program where we actually went to Uganda, and we were able to teach the nurses and the midwives how to use this technology we developed in ultrasound. They were able to scan the moms, see which moms had twins, and send them to a hospital where they could have safe deliveries. And so that was an an area where we did engineering research to develop systems that would be supportable in regions where they didn't have much support. And so we found that we could decrease the number of babies that died at birth and the number of moms that died in childbirth. And I really like this quote by Mother Teresa. When a poor person dies, it is because neither you nor I wanted to give that person what he or she needed. And that, to me, is one of the things that research can do. And I was frustrated when I lived in Seattle because there were so many homeless people and there wasn't ways to provide care for them. So there's a type of research I do called industrial engineering and systems design. It's how do you take care of large groups of people? And so we were able to do this. We put together a clinic. We turned our sports stadium into a free clinic. And in 4 days, we were able to take care of 4,000 people, all at no cost. Everyone said we wouldn't be able to do it, but it was an example of another type of research, which is implementation science. And again, helping many people. And now what brought me back to the College of Human Medicine is the chance to pay it forward, is to have all of these bright students who are medical students who want to do the same thing, who want to go out and help other people, and one of the ways they'll do that is through discovery. There's a great saying that goes like this: I always wondered why somebody doesn't do something about that. Then I realized I was somebody. So one of our takeaways today is for you all to see yourselves as those somebodies who say, why does it have to be like that? And why can't I lead the change? Because every single one of you can. So I found my way. For me, it was about others. It was a career as a doctor doing research and helping others. So now I want to give you my perspective on a research project, but I want you to help me solve it, all right? Because this is what I was confronted with. See if you can help, okay? Research is a way to be that someone. There's something called an innovation cycle. So that'll be one thing you'll take home when someone says, so what'd you learn about today? I want you to say, we learned about the innovation cycle, okay? What's the innovation cycle? Basically what it is you study really hard every day, and then when you get the chance to provide care, you do your best. And when you find there's something you can't do, whether it's for a community, people in another country, right, or for babies, whatever it is, then you find really smart people like the people in the back of the room, and you ask them for help, or you study what they've done, and you implement it, and you take it back through. That's the innovation science. That's how medicine continues to get better every year. And you can play roles in any part, whether it's the research, it's the teaching, the delivery of care. And so I was very interested in stroke. I was interested in stroke because my grandmother had a stroke, and in an instance, it took away her ability to communicate with us and with family. And so I wanted to try to help and learn about it. So at the time, I was at Johns Hopkins, so I started learning about stroke. Do you guys know about stroke? Have you learned about that in school much? Okay, perfect. So I'll show you guys some slides on stroke, and you can help me. What happens with stroke is this. This is a picture. Let's see. And here are the arteries that go up to the brain. This is the brain, okay? And what happens is one of the arteries gets blocked. And when the artery gets blocked and the artery just carries blood flow to your brain, it can't get enough oxygen. If it doesn't get enough oxygen, that part of the brain dies. And if that part of the brain allows you to talk or to walk or to understand, you lose that function. Okay, that's what a stroke does to patients, all right? And so this is my grandma, and she had a stroke, and what was striking to me is that someone who was really, really engaged in there in 1 minute, suddenly that went away, and I thought we could do better, and we can do better. So learned about it, started practicing doing that, giving care to patients who had stroke, and realized I couldn't always help. So I'm gonna have you guys help me diagnose this patient with a stroke, all right? Ready? Now you're gonna skip the 7 years of training I had to be able to read scans, all right? And you're gonna read the scan for me, all right? So here is a patient right here. This is a patient that came into me in my emergency department, okay? And this is an artery that goes up in the neck. And this is the other artery that goes up on the neck. And what you can see how there's like a person's skull is outlined here? Can you see that a little bit? Okay, so if I turn and face you, okay? And I've got one artery coming up here and one artery coming up here. And one of the things that were created is symmetry, right? Both sides look the same, right? Same inside your body for the most part. And so this person has an abnormality with their arteries that you guys have to find, all right? And it's where it's not symmetric, all right? So you've got where you'd expect these arteries to come all the way out, and then they supply the brain, and they supply the brain, and they supply the brain. Do you see a difference between this side and that side? And you can toss that out. There's the good thing about life is that making mistakes is how you learn, right? That's actually a key lesson. Take a few seconds, talk to your colleagues at your table, right? Because that's also how science and medicine happens. You ask each other, right? So which big thing? This part here? Oh, so this is what's called, this thing? Oh, that's good. That's a good pickup. That's asymmetric, but that's not the one. That's good, though. That's exactly what you do. Part of what you learn in medical school is normal from abnormal. So look up, the finding is somewhere up in here. This table says something's missing. Does anybody agree with this table of scholars? Perfect. So what are you seeing? It's not connected. So what you have, one is this artery goes out all the way to here. This artery stops. It stops right there. Now the key with these arteries is this is where the brain is, and this is how blood flow gets there. So which side is normal? This one or that one? How many say this side's normal? Exactly right. This side had something happen to it. Who has a thought about what that something is? It's a stroke. It's a blood clot. Exactly right. So it blocked this artery, and it prevented blood flow to getting to these parts of the person's brain. So they suddenly couldn't talk, and they couldn't understand people talking to them. Sorry about that. And you can't hear me talk because I have too slight a voice. Sorry. So exactly right. So that's a stroke. That's what it looks like. And I was in the emergency room with this family when their husband came in. He couldn't talk. He couldn't understand. And what I could see was just this incredible frustration in his eyes because we couldn't help him. He got to the hospital too late. There was nothing that we could do. And that, unfortunately, was going to be a deficit that he had to live with, right? And so if you go back to this innovation cycle, does it make sense so far? Because once it's blocked and that part of the brain dies, you lose that function. So I studied it because I wanted to learn more. How could we help? Why couldn't I help? The family was so frustrated. And what I realized was, does anybody know what this is here? It's a type of scan that we do on patients, an imaging study. It's a CAT scan, exactly right. That's a CAT scan. It's a CT of the patient's head. So what I want you guys to do is tell me, does that look like there's something wrong with it? Now again, you'd say, yeah, thanks, Norma, maybe I'll go to 7 years, right, of school. But it goes back to the same thing, asymmetry. Is one side different than the other? And if it is, then you say which side is not normal, right? Which side is not normal? And so if you look at this, and this is the problem with stroke at the time, is it's really hard to see if anything's abnormal there. And if you can't tell which side's abnormal, then it's not safe to treat the patient. So that was what my study showed me, was that fundamentally the reason I couldn't help that patient that day is because the CAT scan, the available tool, wasn't good enough. So thinking about that innovation cycle from I learned about it, then I tried to practice, I couldn't help, I went and learned more, I was stuck. So what would I then do as the next step? I would go all the way back up, right? All the way back up to discovery, and that's research, right? I needed to learn what I could do to try to solve that problem that made it so I couldn't help my patient that day, right? That's research. So what I did is I did this. I talked to really smart physicists and engineers and chemists, and part of what I had done in school was try to learn a lot about a lot of it. What this is a picture of is a drop of ink in a flask. And you might go, well, what does that have to do with stroke? It's a drop of ink in a flask, and certainly that's not a class I'd have to pay attention to. That looks like physics or chemistry, right? Well, the answer is what happens is these ink molecules start to spread out. To spread out. And what I had found was this really smart physicist who figured out that you could do something called nuclear magnetic resonance to look at how the water molecules moved. Because all around you right now, water molecules are moving. Okay? They figured out that they could measure that with something called MRI. Have you heard of MRI as a type of scan? They knew they could do that. What they didn't know is what they would do with that. Right, or how to use it. Well, that was something that I thought about. Now, if we go back to stroke, you know what happens in stroke? These are pictures of cells in your brain, okay? Pictures of cells in your brain. And what you see are these little squigglies, this is the motion of water molecules. They move, there's particles moving all the time. What happens in stroke is those particles that were outside of these cells get trapped inside the cells. And because I'd studied my biology and I knew about stroke, and this physicist told me that he could tell when water molecules moved and how far, I said, well, wait, what if you imaged the motion of water molecules in patients with stroke? Could you see the stroke better? Because if you could see the stroke better, you could help the patient, right? Does that make sense? Right? So it was really this combination. So now you're the radiologist, and this patient comes in with stroke, and we use this new kind of imaging that we invented. And so if I asked you, in this example, do you see something that's not symmetric? What do you think? You absolutely do, right? And if I said, which side? Well, it's this side. And the point of that is once we could see which side was abnormal, we could extend how far we could treat patients. Instead of just being able to help about 4 out of 100 patients that came in, we could suddenly treat 20 out of 100. And so we took what we discovered and then we brought it back through to patients. And that's research, right? It's taking these problems, and here's just a ton of patients that we helped. And we were able to help people who otherwise would have been paralyzed or not being able to walk or talk. And so it's this innovation cycle that we want you to learn about today. And I'll give you the final example of how it was cool. So there's something called Lockedin Syndrome. Lockedin Syndrome is that if you block off one of the arteries in the back of your brain, you can only do one thing. You can blink your eyes, but you can't move, you can't talk, you can breathe, but that's about it. It's called being locked in. And it's one of the worst types of strokes that you can have, right? And so I was at the time working at Johns Hopkins, and we had invented our technique, but there was a woman who was 37 who'd had a stroke, and she was locked in. And she went to Georgetown, which was a hospital not far away, and they said, we can't treat you. You got here too late. And so her future was to be locked in, right? So what happened was, though, is that her husband knew someone who knew about our work. And so they ultimately had the wife helicoptered to where I was on call, and we were able to use that imaging technique, and then we were able to remove that clot from her artery, and then she was not locked in. Every Christmas, she sends me a card from somewhere waving, that's her, not locked in. So the point is only that this makes a huge difference in people's lives. And if it really comes together in a wonderful way, then what you can do is you can make this available, because the problem with that is the only way that patient got to us is he knew someone who knew someone who knew someone. But the really best thing is once you discover something that matters, then they distribute it to hospitals and places all over the country. And so that's a part of what we were able to do. So going all the way back to you really and absolutely can make a huge difference in the world. If you work hard, study hard, believe in yourself, it's totally true. And so our goal today is that you come here and you learn about research and you see that it really is a mechanism to make a difference, and there's lots of ways. And again, congrats on what I understand is you all have not lost your way. You all are on track, which is really cool. And so, yeah, keep up the good work, because anything is possible, anything, right? So, excellent, glad you're here. And I am going to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Gorman, who is going to share some words with all of you. Yeah.
Can everyone see me okay from right here? Is that all right? Okay. So one thing that really resonated with me with the presentation is really embracing this growth mindset, right? Anybody know what a growth mindset is? Okay, so let me tell you about it. When you face adversity, when something doesn't go well, what do? Do you throw in the towel, or do you reflect and get better? My assumption that with 7 years of schooling, every single day in those 7 years didn't go perfectly. My assumption is there were many failures in those 7 years. But you didn't quit, and now you're the dean of this beautiful facility, right? This beautiful research center that is, correct me if I'm wrong, over $80 million? $80 million, right? So there was adversity along the way. If you don't know me, my name is Ron Gorman. I am one of the assistant superintendents for the Grand Rapids Public Schools. On behalf of Superintendent Weatherall Neal and our Board of Education, I would like to thank the very talented team at Michigan State University for their hospitality and for inviting us to open up this beautiful research center with you today. So students, please thank the team at Michigan State University. I would especially like to thank Dr. Norman Beauchamp, who gave a wonderful presentation. We weren't expecting that, so thank you so much. Thank you. And also former state representative Jerry Koyman, who's the assistant dean here. He's in the back. Thank you, Jerry, for all you do for GRPS. If you're not aware, the Grand Rapids Public Schools and Michigan State University has a long, storied history. We have many Michigan State University alumni among our ranks. One is in the back of the room right now, John Helmholtz, who attended Michigan State University. I attended Michigan State University, and I have to give some shine to my wife, who's in the room, Melissa Gorman, who also went to Michigan State University. So there are lots of Spartans in the room from the Grand Rapids Public Schools. Go white, go white. Additionally, every summer for, I would say, the last 5 or 6 years, we've participated in the GRPS MSU Summer of Success, where we send students to Michigan State to stay for 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks every single year. Of course, you know about the pipeline program at Innovation Central High School and Michigan State University, so that's absolutely fantastic. And then we hope to, with both of these facilities being in our backyards, we hope to do even more. I would like to tell you who's in the room today. So in the back of the room, the folks who came in first, this is the team from Innovation Central High School. And Innovation Central High School is a school not far from here, and these students actually walked today to this field trip. So when you were in school, did you ever walk to a field trip? Probably if it was a park, but not an $80 million research facility. So we appreciate that you are in our backyards. Innovation Central is comprised of 4 schools: the Academy of Modern Engineering, the Academy of Business, Leadership, and Entrepreneurship, the Academy of Design and Construction, and the Academy of Health Sciences and Technology. And that's the group of individuals that is here with us today from Innovation Central. So they're already on their pathway to a career in healthcare. The group in front, thank you. The group in front is from UPrep, and they're led by Ms. Kenyatta Hill, who is their principal. And I also need to introduce Mr. Rodney Brown. Where's Mr. Rodney Brown? Assistant Principal of Innovation Central. Forgot to introduce him. But UPrep, led by Ms. Kenyatta Hill, their students have already had internships in the healthcare field. Many of their students are at KCTC taking courses which lead to certifications, and they're also really excited about all the future endeavors with Michigan State. So please thank UPrep for showing up, team. There are not many cities that have the resources that we have in Grand Rapids. Every single day you turn around, there's another crane building something else, and we're very proud of that. There are other cities that don't have all of the luxuries that Grand Rapids has. That said, we are so thankful that you are in our backyard. You're in the backyard of so many schools in the Grand Rapids Public Schools, and we look forward to the great partnerships that not only we've established with Michigan State University, but have been established with everyone in the philanthropic community here in Grand Rapids. So I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time. We are going to break you up into groups today, and we were thinking 11, but maybe a little less now. Okay, so we are going to coordinate groups of 10. We're going to go to breakout sessions this morning. And one thing we talked about during the planning session is we want it to be exciting. We want you to be engaged. We want there to be tons of hands-on experiences. So that's what we have for you today. So get excited about the work. Lastly, congratulations, Michigan State University. Thank you again. Everyone, enjoy your day. Go green.
Go white.
So that's how you really know a Spartan fan, right? Am I correct? Because if you say go green and someone else comes back with go green, you know they're really not a Spartan fan, right? So let me say it again. Go green.
Go white.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. Marcy, do you want everyone just to sit still for a second? We'll have our chaperones and our principals, and you can also help coordinate the groups.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep.
GRPS, MSU, thank you again, and everybody have a wonderful day.